In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the master cylinder on your Chevy Sonic. This will be located in the engine bay. Let's get started. Using a pick, we're going to get under the connector tab. We're going to pop this middle section up and remove the connector from the master cylinder. So we have some room to remove the master cylinder. We're going to remove this connector. We're going to push on this metal tab, pull straight back, and pull the connector to the side. Use the correct fluid for the system. On our cap it says .3, so we'll be using .3 fluid throughout this video. Remove the master cylinder cap. Inside of there will be a small screen. You can pick that out with your finger, or you can use a small pick. We're going to use a fluid extractor and remove most of the brake fluid from the reservoir. Using a 13mm wrench, we're going to crack the fittings open for the brake lines to the master cylinder. We have a rag under this, so when the fluid comes out, it falls onto that. Just have both of the lines cracked open. Try to make it so they're not dripping. Using a 22mm socket, remove the nuts for the master cylinder. Do the same thing on the other side. Remove the lines from the master cylinder. Once I remove the line, I'm going to put my finger over the port. Once you have both lines disconnected, we're going to slowly pull straight forward. And remove the master cylinder. We have clear hose put into two fittings that we've put into the side of the master cylinder and run them up to the reservoir. We're going to bleed the master cylinder. We're going to fill the reservoir with fluid. When you're pouring the fluid in, you want the fluid to cover all of the hose. That's how we're going to bleed this. As we push the bubbles out, it'll hit the reservoir, bubble out, and we'll be able to circulate new fluid in. Continue pumping the master until you see no more bubbles in the hoses. That looks good. With our master cylinder fully bled, we're going to take it out of the vise and install it into the car. Make sure your O-ring is in the correct spot and properly seated. Install the master cylinder. Get the nuts started on either side. I'm going to snug these down by hand as far as I can. You want to get these started by hand. We don't want to cross thread these. All right, we have our nuts fully snugged by hand. The reservoir really doesn't move. We're going to go one line at a time, removing the rear first and installing the hard line, and then moving to the front and doing the same thing. Before removing the fittings, be sure you have plenty of fluid in the master cylinder. We don't want it to run dry as we remove the old fittings and put on the new ones. Remove the bleeder fitting, install the hose, get the fitting started by hand. You want to do this nice and quick. I'm going to snug that rear line down. I'm going to add a bit more fluid before I do that front line. Get the fitting started by hand. I was using a rag so it wasn't as slippery. Snug down that front line. We're going to have to crack these open in just a little bit, so don't get them too tight. Torque the master cylinder nuts to 37 foot-pounds. With an assistant in the car, you're going to have them push down on the brake pedal and keep steady pressure. Go ahead. We're going to crack these lines open one at a time. Let the fluid come out. On the floor? Once the pedal's on the floor, tighten the fitting back up. Once you have the fitting closed, your assistant in the car can release the brake pedal. You're good? Install the screen. Fill the master cylinder all the way to the max line. You'll find the line on the side of the cylinder. And install the cap. Install the connector. Push until you hear a click. If you don't hear a click, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the connector for the master cylinder. Push it straight on. Give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. With all of this tied up, you're going to now need to bleed all 4 brakes, and you'll probably have to do an ABS bleed as well. The ABS bleed will require a scan tool, but you can do the 4-wheel brake bleed without one.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.